Well, people, this is our second try. I hope you can hear us now. I hope the sound is all right now. This is again the people's in the chat show, international chat show. We have the regular problems with Skype and sound and whatever we can imagine. I just got a message from Kevin. We're also been broadcast on Independence Live. Thanks for that, Kevin. Yes, sorry about the whole mess, but we're back, and I hope the sound is good now. Let me just check if the sound is coming through now. Or can you do that, Colin?
I'm going to have a quick check on the Facebook post.
Yeah.
And see. Good evening, Raymond. Good to see you again. How you doing, mate?
Doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm fine, thanks. Yeah.
All right.
Sound appears to be okay. I've got a message back from Ian that audio is better this time.
All right, cool.
So let's go.
All right. Yeah. Hello. Sorry. Hold on.
Ryman's lost the plot.
I've
Your candidate for the next Prime Minister if he's lost the plot.
Hell no. Hell no.
Okay, folk, Ryman's got some kind of problems at his end. Our show tonight, what we're basically trying to do is we're trying to get the crystal ball out, because next week, on Tuesday, the results of the election for the next Tory party leader will be announced. It will be Boris Johnson. We can just about see that is a dead cert. There was a poll just the other day of Tory members that had already voted, and even including the fact that some folk are still to vote. Even if they all voted for Jeremy Hunt, Boris Johnson would still get across the line. So wee crystal ball tonight is going to be based on the assumption that Boris Johnson is the next Prime Minister, elected by 3.5 men that dug in Scotland, and will dictate to Scotland what the future of Scotland should be. One thing that we have to be aware of is even if Jeremy Hunt does pull some kind of magic rabbit out of his hat, he won't be any better for Scotland. So anything we see with the assumption of Boris Johnson being Prime Minister, it will probably count pretty much just as much for Jeremy Hunt. And our first topic tonight is what the effect of the new Prime Minister is going to be on Brexit. Now, what we've seen in the hustings has been very worrying, because they seem to have been trying to out-Brexit each other. Both of them former Remainers. Jeremy Hunt for a bit longer. Boris Johnson was also a Remainer. Famously, he had his 2 articles written the day before he came out for leave, and wasn't quite sure which way the cookie would crumble. The cookie crumbled to leave, so all of a sudden Boris Johnson is the arch-Brexiteer. Now for me, that is one point where I say, I mean, it is okay to change your mind, but that has to be a pretty big dent in his credibility.
Like you already have.
Boris Johnson is a career politician. Boris Johnson isn't in it for the country. He's not in it for the Union. He's not in it for England, for Northern Ireland, for Wales, or for Scotland. He is in it for himself. And Boris Johnson thought that if he goes leave, he could become Prime Minister. And he might well have become Prime Minister 3 years ago if Michael Gove hadn't stabbed him in the back. So all we're seeing is a shift that Boris Johnson will finally be the man of power that he always wanted to be. Even as a kid, he wanted to be king of the world. Boris Johnson's views on Brexit are arch-Brexit. They are almost out-Brexiting Nigel Farage. He is prepared to put the country into a no-deal Brexit just for the sake of having this date, which is now apparently set in stone. And if there's no new deal by then, well, then we're going out with no deal. I, however, think he might get his comeuppance.
Oh yeah.
He's talking about proroguing Parliament. He's talking about stopping Parliament from sitting to effectively stop him, to prevent them from stopping him from being out with no deal. We've seen a lot of people, also Conservative Party, that say they would work against this. They would go to the courts. We've seen other ideas, different settings of Parliament. So I know that folk are worried about a no-deal Brexit, and in one sense, it is probably more likely now than it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Personally, I don't see the UK crashing out with no deal on the 31st of October. I think there's still far too much water to flow under the bridge between now and then, and far too much opposition to this no deal. What we do have, however, is a Prime Minister in that scenario who is actively trying to deny democratically elected MPs their right for a say. And that is a worrying scenario, not just for the United Kingdom, but also for Scotland. Raymond.
Well, you mentioned the whole flip-flopping that Boris Johnson did leading up to the referendum, the EU referendum. But basically, that's what the entire Tory party did, because if you really look at it, there were two camps. One Remain camp, one Leave camp, and I keep saying that they probably did that so they can, whichever way it went, so they could say, we've won. And that sounds like a Tory policy in my book.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The whole background to the referendum was an internal Tory party political problem. They were getting scared by UKIP, and now that the very narrow majority across the whole of the UK has come out, they've gone blinkered into it, saying we have to crash out with everything.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember back to the Brexit referendum, all this crashing out, all this no deal, wasn't really part of the equation. We were told that the UK would be basically being begged on by bended knee by the European Union to sign a trade deal.
Yeah, right.
Because the Tory party is still effectively bogged down in their imperial past. They think that the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is a world power which has something to say in the world.
And hell no.
One is that, especially with the way the negotiations have been going, the United Kingdom, again, folk in Scotland, I'm saying here the United Kingdom is a laughingstock in Europe.
Definitely. I mean, first of all, they don't have anything to say. They're basically Donald Trump's lapdog at this moment. And, you know, they are laughingstock. They never had a plan going into these negotiations, if you can call it negotiations. They had no plan going in. They never had a plan, so the whole scenario of the plan B, plan C through plan Z there were no plans. So that's been a sham from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just the way they went about it. Theresa May got to the stage where she said, okay, she's going to invoke Article 50. We've seen things coming out just the last few days where the diplomats were advising her against signing Article 50 because they said, you don't know what you're doing yet. But Theresa May went ahead regardless.
Yeah.
Because she was also blinkered by the infighting in her own party and says, I have to do something. And what we've been seeing for the last 2.5 years is more Tory infighting with the snap general election where Theresa May managed to lose a majority. Good call, Theresa. And it's made the majority in Westminster absolutely against no deal. And that is why I know folk are worried about no deal. And believe me, you should be worried about no deal because if the UK crashes out without with a no deal on the 31st of October, as Boris Johnson has claimed he wants to do. I say claimed because Boris Johnson and trust and actions, they're two different kettles of fish. But if the UK does crash out with no deal on 31st of October, it will damage everybody. It will damage the UK, it will damage Scotland, it will also damage folk in Europe.
Definitely. I mean, first of all, the thing is they're basically, and in the way they went about, they're alienating themselves from the rest of the world. They think they can do anything, but I just can't get my hand around it. They never had, like I said, they never had a plan. They never will have a plan. They just we went out, and Boris just like I said, he was flip flopping. He was first for Remain. Now he was against. It's been like I said, it's been a sham from start to finish. It's ridiculous, and they are basically what do you say? They're laughing stock. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, they've made the UK to the laughing stock of Europe.
Yeah.
What you see if you follow any of the European politicians is that you've seen a change over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Or even 3 years if you go back to the referendum. The initial reaction was, that is a real shame that you voted to leave. Okay, let's try and make the best of it.
Exactly.
Then we've had all these shenanigans presided over by Theresa May and her 33.5 different Brexit secretaries, where they've got red lines and everything else and not prepared to negotiate, and Britannia rules the waves. And you are seeing the attitude in Europe just get more and more frustrated, where somewhere along the line the EU are going to say, see yous, just get to.
Yeah.
And that could be a problem come the 31st of October, depending on the way the new Prime Minister works things, because the EU has its patience stretched to the limit already. Every nation in the EU has their patience stretched to the limit.
Exactly.
And if Boris Johnson comes around with his old bluster, there is a real risk that even if the UK Parliament manages to stop Boris Johnson from crashing out with no deal, that the EU will not agree to a further extension, because they will just say, enough is enough.
Definitely.
I think that is something which folk in the UK, and especially in Scotland, don't necessarily see in media reports.
Well, and there's another thing, and I've talked to Kevin about this yesterday. Um, no matter what kind of Brexit it's going to be, and we all think it's going to be a hard Brexit, but no matter what kind of Brexit it's going to be, there are still these final payments that have to be made to the EU for the last period that that the UK was in the European Union. And Kevin said, well, they might even want to decide to not to pay it. Well, add that on to the patience that already is running thin. How do you think that's gonna pan out when if that happens?
That's just what I was saying before with Boris Johnson, this bluster.
Yeah.
I mean, the EU, one thing that we have to say has been united in looking for the best solution, trying to accommodate the UK's special requests, but still, obviously, looking after themselves.
Exactly.
It's understandable. I mean, the EU aren't going to turn around and say, all right, the UK, you can have everything you want, and it doesn't matter how it affects our grouping, which you are leaving. It'd be stupid to do otherwise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, this bluster, I think it almost takes us on to our next point about international diplomacy, because I don't see that this threat that Boris Johnson has been making several times over the last few years about, oh, well, we won't pay them. I don't think that's going to go down very well in Europe as well. Again, I think it's going to increase the chance that come the 31st of October, if there is any attempt made, for whatever reason, for the UK to look for a further extension, the EU will just turn around and say, see what, we've had enough of this, let's just move on.
Exactly.
Yours.
Exactly. And then in what kind of position you will be? You will be at the back of the line for negotiations afterwards for trade deals. You will be in the back of the line for any kind of negotiation that you might want to have with other countries. You're digging your own graves.
I don't think the UK will be at the back of the line. I mean, the UK economy, folk will be interested in negotiating. They're not going to say, all right, we'll start talking to you in 3 years. But what it will have a big effect on is the goodwill in this negotiation process.
Well, that's actually what I meant. I mean, with all this Brexit crap, that's, you know, like the extensions, the not having any plans, that it's gonna affect people in the way that they want to, or not that they want to, but in the way that they plan to negotiate or talk to you. I mean, it's gonna linger in their mind. Oh, it's gonna be like that again, and that's gonna last a couple of years at least.
I mean, at the end of the day, if the UK decides to get stroppy, they won't have a favourable negotiating environment.
Exactly.
As simple as that.
Exactly.
And the worry is that Jeremy Hunt, to an extent, but especially Boris Johnson, is likely to get stroppy. Because again, he's more concerned with Farage than he is with the country, and of course, no concern at all about Scotland, apart from sharing it with Union Jacks. I mean, can we maybe move on to the next point, Ryan?
Yeah.
We were talking about international diplomacy, and we had the situation with the UK ambassador in the United States just the other week, giving his appraisal of Donald Trump. And basically an appraisal that probably just about every normal thinking person on this planet would share. And Donald Trump getting, again, very stroppy on Twitter. Donald Trump's preferred medium of communication with the world. And there was some support from the UK politicians. But strikingly, Boris Johnson refused to give the UK ambassador in the United States, his support, claims now that apparently there was a bit of a misunderstanding. It's not how he meant it at all. That's typical Boris Johnson. That's exactly what Boris Johnson said about, I can't remember the name of the woman stuck in Iran in a jail when he made another faux pas. Oh, I didn't mean it like that, really. That is going to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Talking rubbish, diplomatic faux pas, and then saying, well, I didn't really mean it, but by then the damage is done.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing, I've seen him do an interview when they were talking about him being fired on a couple of occasions on the account of talking lies and lying to people and stuff like that, and then also something about certain numbers, the amount they have to pay to the EU, I think it was that we're talking about, and he told them about the number also in that interview, which they already proven that was incorrect, and he kept on hammering, no, it's correct, and then when they called him on it, then he started backpedaling again, well, yeah, but that's that added and stuff like that, and how can you take that oath seriously? I mean, it's beyond me.
It's made his career out of telling lies.
Exactly.
The lies in the EU referendum. He's also made his career out of talking rubbish, making diplomatic faux pas. I mean, faux pas is the polite word for it because I know we're on Independence Live, so we're not allowed to swear. Basically, Boris Johnson, he comes across with his bluster. And if he gets called out, you get a bit more bluster. And he thinks that folk will ignore it because he's big, cuddly, we all like to eat Boris. Under normal circumstances, this guy's political career would have been dead 10, 15, 20 years ago. It is an indictment of the situation that we in Scotland find ourselves in as being part of the UK still, that something like this is getting voted on by 100,000 folk, including, incidentally, 15-year-olds who are allowed to vote in Tory leadership elections, even though the Tory party would deny the vote in parliamentary elections to 16-year-olds. These folk are deciding our future and effectively crowning a king.
Well,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Scotland's voice is not heard in this whole process.
Hell no, never.
And will never be heard as long as we stay a part of this union.
Exactly. There was actually either a meme or somebody just saying it online. That the question on during the next independence referendum should read: do you want self-determination? Do you want to be able to make your own decisions, or do you want Boris Johnson? Now,
well,
how in your right mind?
Here, mate, Sir Raymond.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Stephen Miller and Ian Leckenby, who are discussing on the Facebook chat. Donald Trump is the rocket, says Ian. I don't think many of us would disagree with that. We're also talking about the supposed this secret poll that the Tories made on support for Scottish independence. A lot of folk, Stephen said it as well, 72%. I'm not sure if I would go with the 72%. I'd refer you back to the national podcast with the wee Ginger Doug and Callum Baird. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, where 72% might be a bit over-optimistic. What you see is, whether it's 72% or 65%, of 55%. We know from recent polls that have been published by the mainstream polling organisations, who are no friends of Scottish independence, that if Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, which is likely to be the case a week tomorrow, support for Scottish independence would rise to 55%. And the minute he starts working his magic touch, you really are at this stage with all the things that he's got planned, with all the things the Tories have got planned. Folk in Scotland, if you don't see it then, you'll never see it.
No. Then you have eye blinds on, and I can just grab my head around it that people would choose Boris over independence, above self-determination. I just...
Well, of course, apparently the Scottish Tory MPs had a group meeting with Boris Johnson today. They were going to meet him, and we expect them to swear loyalty. I think it was Angus Robertson said today, the Tories have made an arse of Operation Arse, so they're now going to get down and bended knee. I mean, I know that not everybody is the political geek that I am. I'm the sort of person, I will, if I'm at home of an afternoon, I will watch proceedings in Westminster or Holyrood for 3, 4, 5 hours quite happily. Now, I know that a lot of folk have great bigger concerns in life. A lot of folk are looking at getting out, working, earning money to keep their family above the breadline, to put food in their kids' mouths. That's okay. I can see it from what's going on in Parliament, both in Holyrood and at Westminster. And when Boris Johnson comes out and makes this public, again, beware of who you watch. Mainstream media will put a different spin on it. Folk in Scotland are surely going to turn around and say there is no place for Scotland in this so-called union.
Amen. Amen, man. And I hope people finally open their eyes to that. I mean, it's just sad that you would choose the union with Boris Johnson at the helm over the right to, and it's a right. It's not something you strive after. It's a right to be able to determine your own affairs.
I mean, again, Boris Johnson, for me, is not the decisive factor. It doesn't matter who is the next Prime Minister, because Jeremy Hunt has also said that he would reject the Section 30 request from the Scottish Government despite a triple-locked mandate. Jeremy Hunt would, just as much as Boris Johnson, reject the democratic will of the Scottish people, like a dad saying to his 15-year-old son, just go to Madeira. So it doesn't matter which of them gets in.
No.
Maybe a quick shout out to Stephen Miller again, who also would like us to give a shout for Phil Simmons, who has given Stephen his opportunity to write and publish a Yes Gift Nook. Thanks Steve, thanks Phil, thanks for your support. And Stephen Miller makes a point, this freedom of information request about support for independence, if it was under 55%, they would probably disclose it, because the Tories are telling us all the time, they've been telling us since 2014, that there is no appetite for another independence referendum. I'm hungry.
Definitely. You also had the topic of the future of saving the union. But what did you mean by that?
Again, in the hustings, the two candidates weren't just out Brexiting each other, They were out unioning each other. They both came up to Scotland for a flying visit, because a flying visit is all that the Sweaties have deserved. Jeremy Hunt famously was wee fish supper in Aberdeen, his Carnivore and Brew, and says, I am a unionist with every bone in my body. Boris Johnson, I'm not quite sure what he said. I think I'd probably be onto autopilot. But what we do know is that the new UK government hub in Edinburgh, which again we've talked about in this show many times before, this, if you like, colonial hub. I don't need to say anything else about it, because they've now told us, just next to Waverley Station, we're going to have Queen Elizabeth House, which will be the hub for the UK government in Scotland. Both potential future Prime Ministers have said they want to fight for the Union, because they're unionists with every bone in their body. Boris Johnson even wants to be called Minister for the Union, and they're going to be showering us with love. They're going to be showering us with a Union Jack on every single product they get the chance. When you go out in Scotland nowadays, you see all over the place various signs, various projects. With the help of EU funding, we have the European flag. Once Brexit has come about, the UK government will claim that they are making up the difference, if you believe them, and say it's the UK government. Now, the reaction that they're expecting is that folk in Scotland, maybe the soft no's and soft yeses, suddenly turn round and say, see what the UK is doing for us. It's propaganda. It is nothing else. It's propaganda to make Scotland continue or go back to the idea that we as a nation can't do anything without the big arms of the Westminster government to fall back in. We are too wee, we are too poor, we are too stupid.
Yeah, right.
Now, you go anywhere, how many other countries have become successful independent nations with a lower population, with fewer natural resources, with fewer exports in Scotland? The idea that folk in Scotland believe that we're a basket case, that we couldn't manage our own, I don't understand it. But this belief is exactly what this government hub at Waverley is going to try and promote. Is going to promote jakery, is going to promote the generosity of the UK government subsidising us, even though they wouldn't subsidise the spare bedroom.
Scotland is subsidising the UK government, nothing else.
Project Fear Mark 2. It is as simple as that, Raymond. It is Project Fear Mark 2. They now know that the tide in Scotland is changing, and they are scared. And they're going to come out, flags are blazing, arrogance are blazing, condescension are blazing, in an attempt to promote just cringe, which has been drilled into people in Scotland from a very young age for the last few hundred years.
Definitely. Well, what do you think the future place for of Scotland will be in Europe? I mean, I personally believe they would have a great future in the European Union. I'm not. We've talked about this as well. I'm not that big a fan of the EU as such, as it is now. I am pro Europe. If I'm not completely on the EU as it is now, but I do believe that if you compare the two, like for instance on the subject of self-determination, that being with the EU would be preferable than being inside the UK. I completely believe that. But I do think that the question of being in the EU, like we said, like 65% or something, 67% voted to remain in the EU. 62 it was, I think. 62, yeah. But I do believe that is a question to be determined after independence has been achieved. That's my view.
I mean, I personally am a big fan of the EU. Again, as I said before in this show many a time, the EU enabled me to make the life that I have. I've been living in Germany now for over 30 years. I'm happy. I've got a good life. And that was all possible down to freedom of movement.
Exactly.
Yeah. The EU is, again, not perfect. I would agree with you absolutely on that.
That's basically what I meant, by the way.
I think the EU have really made a big mistake with the way they've been going for the new EU Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. They were trying to make it a bit more democratic, a bit more obviously democratic, and they couldn't agree. And so effectively, the heads of government settled on compromise candidates.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is particularly good for the EU.
No.
I think the candidate herself is also not particularly good for the EU because she is not particularly popular in Germany. She hasn't been much of a success as defence minister over the last few years, various scandals. But equally, on a European level, she ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Multilingual, European background. So, I mean, again,
great family background as well.
I think one important thing for Scotland, again, I personally was not particularly chuffed about seeing Ursula von der Leyen being elected as Commission President. Again, subject to confirmatory vote later on in the year, which again a lot of folk aren't aware of. But she seems to be quite friendly towards Scotland. And from that point of view, I can understand why maybe Alan Smith, Aileen and Christian voted for her, because we have to look at Scotland first. We have to put the groundwork down for if an independent Scotland, and again it will be the decision for the people in an independent Scotland to make, if they were to decide they wanted to join the EU, obviously the more sympathetic folk we have there in Europe, the better.
Definitely. And like I said, I'm not against the EU, but it's like you said, they're not perfect. Well, nobody is perfect, of course, but in the last couple of years they made some questionable choices for me to feel that way. Like for instance, their position towards Catalonia, for instance, when the whole beat down of that peaceful protest and with the referendum there, nothing was said, nothing at all, and that's what, in my book, one of the times that they missed when they really dropped the ball.
I agree with you absolutely there, and the one thing that worries me the most isn't so much Ursula von der Leyen, but the fact that Josep Borrell is going to be the foreign policy head of the Commission. A Spaniard,
Spaniard, yeah.
Catalonian independence. Also, personally, not squeaky clean. And I think that is, for me, almost a bigger problem than Ursula von der Leyen. I think that Ursula von der Leyen, she might grow into the role.
Yeah.
I see a potential there. I mean, again, I'm not particularly enamoured with her vote, with her getting voted in, but I can see at least potential that she could grow into the role. With Borrell, that's going to be an absolute disaster for our friends in Catalonia.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. What was next? Well, talking about the whole thing is about independence, of course. What should be the next steps towards independence? What do you think we should? What Scotland needs to do? Of course, next to having the next referendum called, of course.
Well, I mean, I think that is the next step. I mean, Nicola Sturgeon has been very clear ever since the word go that once the Brexit scenario has been defined, she will then put that to a vote of people in Scotland. And I know that a lot of the Yes movement are getting very frustrated. I can understand that frustration because we're seeing what's going on and we're thinking we need to get out, we need to lifeboat.
Definitely.
But again, the position of the Scottish Government has always been very clear. Once Brexit is clear, you can like it, you can lump it, really.
Well,
I'm getting to the stage where I'm thinking, how much longer do we wait as well? I'm getting impatient. I'm thinking, we can see what's happening, and whatever's going to happen, the solution isn't going to be good.
No. Well, the thing is with, like I said, when the whole Brexit scenario becomes clear, do you really think it's going to be near clear anytime soon? I mean, I think there's never going to be a straightforward view on what Brexit's going to be like. It's going to be a no-deal Brexit, because if Boris doesn't do it, like you said earlier, the European Union will say, we're done, goodbye. And so, I mean, it's not going to get clearer than it is now, in my view. I do have complete faith in Nicola. I know she'll have a backup plan. I know she'll have, but it's just a fact of saying that we're waiting for the Brexit scenario to be clear. I truly feel that it's never going to be clear. It's always going to be a mess. It has been a mess from the get-go, and that will never change in my view.
I mean, clarity is relative.
Oh, yeah, you got a point.
Clarity is relative, and I mean, I could appreciate the comments 2 years ago, where we first put in the Section 30 request, and Theresa May famously said, "Now is not the time."
No.
We had the snap general election, where there was again an independence majority at Westminster, despite what the Tories would have you believe. But we lost a few seats. I mean, again, we lost a few seats against 2015. I'm sorry, I mean, 2015 result was one of these once-in-a-lifetime scenarios.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Leicester City winning the Premier League in England. It'll happen once, but you're not going to have it happening on a regular basis.
No.
So, again, I mean, the Tories are everyone's saying, oh, well, we won the election because they lost some seats. The Tories got the 13 fakers dozen who've done absolutely nothing for Scotland at Westminster over the last 2 years. I don't think many of them will still have a seat at the next general election where it comes about this year or in 3 years' time. But I mean, aside of that, clarity is relative. How long do we need to wait? Because we know that any no-deal Brexit scenario, but even a Brexit scenario with a deal, will be harmful to the Scottish economy, the folk living in Scotland. Now, I can understand the opinion polls haven't moved much over the last 5 years since 2014. But that in itself is a sign that the appetite is there in Scotland.
Definitely.
Because under normal circumstances, in 2014, when we started with 25% yes, got up to just over 50, got pegged back with the lies, with the vow, to 45%. Normally, you would expect a lot of those folk to say, ah, well, we tried it, never mind, doesn't need to be, we're too weak, we're too poor, we're too stupid. What we're seeing right now are small rises in the polls without a campaign, where we're now pretty much 50-50, yes and no, in the polls. Bear in mind, folk, these are polls that are establishment polls, so they are unlikely to show the full story. I've never met any yeser who has been asked their opinion in one of these opinion polls, for example. And this is all without a campaign. We still have Brexit coming out. Everybody knows that Brexit is going to be a disaster. It's not quite enough to push folk in the polls to say, right, independence is the way forward. But we get a Conservative campaign, and have folk out in the street, shouting indoors, talking to folk, we have a vision of what an independent Scotland could be. We can go from 49% to 75% in the space of 3 months. We need a short, sharp campaign, and ultimately, the Scottish Government needs to have faith in the grassroots movement.
Amen.
They're there. They're ready. They're champing at the bit. They have been doing it for 5 years. Oh, now is the time. Let's get this referendum. Let's get out in the streets. Let's campaign. Let's put the arguments across. The positive arguments across. Put the negative arguments across as well, though. Why the union is not working for Scotland. We had a story in the BBC about the drugs deaths in Scotland. That is an ideal example as to why the union is not working for Scotland, because anything the Scottish Government proposes is slapped back to Westminster because it's the reserve power. We need these powers in our hands. Get the referendum, get the campaign, get the grassroots out on the streets like they did in 2014, and we'll get over the line.
Amen. Amen. Well, we're nearly getting at the end of the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Are there any questions, more questions on the chat, Colin?
We've got a few comments. Steve Miller saying he loves Nicola. The comments are still not enough. Tsunami 2 is coming. Union Scottish MPs set to lose all seats. Stephen, that depends when the general election is. If we get a snap general election in October, I think we could maybe use that for a similar result as we had in 2015. If the Boris Johnson Tory government stays in term for the fixed parliament, which will take us up to 2022, I think that'll be waiting too long.
Yeah.
Ian Leckerby says Nicola and the wider political SNP need to get proper involved with the grassroots indie movement. They've got to push the button and start the official Indie Ref 2 campaign. We're ready. Ian, I think you and me, we agree on that point. The grassroots are ready to grow. I've been in Scotland last year at the March in Glasgow. I was in Galashiels this year. I'm going to Campbelltown the week after next. Looking forward to going through to another couple of indie marches in Scotland this year. I saw the pictures for Edinburgh. I've seen the pictures from all the other marches. The grassroots are there. They are champing at the bit. They are ready to go. And they will do the legwork. They will get sharpened indoors. They will get talking to their mates. They'll get talking to their work colleagues. We need the starting gun to be fired. Sooner
Definitely.
rather than later, because waiting until Brexit has panned out, in the worst case scenario, 31st of October, Woodrow says, alright, that's out there, a deal, maybe prorogued Parliament, maybe prorogued Holyrood even, so that you've got Boris Johnson acting as the dictator. Could happen.
Definitely.
It could happen, folks. And that is why we have to move now. Again, the other point is, if we could, I mean, it's probably a wee bit unrealistic now. I mean, ideally it would be an independence referendum in September this year, so that Scotland could remain in the EU by default, and then still decide after independence, do we want to stay in the EU or not? Timescale is probably a bit bad, but the longer we wait, the longer the various UK internal laws could diverge from EU laws, which, depending on how it pans out, could make it more difficult for an independent Scotland to rejoin the EU. If we assume now that we're going to get drawn out, currently we have full compliance with all EU regulations. The minute the Tories start proroguing Holyrood, putting transnational laws in, chlorinated chicken and everything else, the further Scotland also would diverge from the EU norms, which would make it more difficult to rejoin the EU, no matter what the sympathy factor was in Brussels.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, we're getting to the end of the show. I want to thank everybody for watching, for participating on the chat. My final thoughts for the show, this is just, people, please, just open your eyes. If you're still doubting if Scotland should be independent, just watch Boris Johnson on any kind of interview video, and if you're not ready, really changed in your mindset, I don't even know what will, but just think of yourself. Would you rather have self-determination, or do you want to follow Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt, or, like you said, whoever it will be? That's, I will leave you at that. Colin, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, a big shout out to Stephen Miller, who's been following us all night. Thanks, Stephen, for joining us. And again, thanks for your support, sharing in your various groups. Stephen says the polls are moving now. Since the Bojo Hunt garbage started to be televised, there have been a handful of good indicators. Target 250,000 for Edinburgh. Now, Ryan, I know you were at Edinburgh last year.
Yep.
I couldn't make it. I had my health problems. I'm planning to be in Edinburgh this year. I'm also going to be in Campbelltown actually the week after next. It'll be a smaller scale march. I think the important thing for the grassroots movement right now to do we're in limbo a wee bit. What we have to do is we have to keep the heat. There's going to be there are a lot of folk out there trying to divide the movement. Be it folk that are within the movement that are getting the huff with each other, which can happen, or be it even trolls that are sowing the seeds that folk are upset about.
Exactly.
What we in the independence movement have to do is keep the heat, keep united in the common cause, because in independent Scotland, it will be for the people of Scotland to decide about EU membership. It will be for the people of Scotland to decide about things like transgender recognition, where folk are getting really hit up on Twitter at the minute. These things we can decide as an independent nation. We have to keep the heat, keep the eyes on the common goal. It's okay to discuss things, but keep it civil.
Definitely.
Because we know that the unionists are out there trolling our accounts, looking for every single chink in the armour they think they might find that the independence movement is falling apart. The independence movement is not falling apart.
Exactly.
On the contrary, it is growing.
Exactly.
We can show that in Campbellton. We can show that in Perth. We can show that in Dunfermline at the Forwarders Run March. And most of all, again, back to Stephen, 250,000 Edinburgh, I will be there. Everybody else, get to Edinburgh. This is going to be the big show of strength of the independence movement, where we all say, we want self-determination. We want to be an independent country. And if Ruthie comes out in a tank after that and says, there's no idea about independence, maybe you just all laugh at her.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, people, that's the end of the show. Again, thank you for watching. Hope you will be there next week. And we'll probably have a lot more to talk about. If you, during the week, you have any topics that you want discussed, or if you want to be on the show even, just please contact us and we'll make it happen. This was the People's International Chat Show. All have a good night and see you soon. Bye bye.
Good night, folks.